Although not formally on its agenda in recent months, the Council has been kept fully appraised by High Representative Ashton of progress in the vital negotiations being conducted by the E3+3, that's France, Germany, UK, US, Russia and China, with Iran in relation to its nuclear programme. As I said in my statement at the time, I warmly welcomed the agreement reached in Geneva early on the 24th of November by the E3+3 and Iran. High Representative Ashton and all those involved, including Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif, are to be commended for having fashioned an agreement which was never going to be easy and involved difficult concessions on all sides. The Geneva Accord, due to run for 6 months but renewable, represents a first step towards a comprehensive agreement with Iran aimed at resolving the many concerns and questions to which Iran's nuclear programme has given rise over the past decade. It should be welcomed as setting out a roadmap for resolving diplomatically this vital international issue and helping to prevent the further proliferation of nuclear weapons. I have no doubt that if faithfully implemented by all sides over the next 6 months, it can greatly contribute to promoting increased regional and global security. I look forward to hearing High Representative Ashton's own personal assessment when she briefs the Council on the Geneva Agreement on the 16th of December. The December Council is expected to take stock of developments in relation to the Middle East peace process. The US-sponsored peace talks began in late July and are now at almost the halfway point of their allotted 9-month time span. Both parties are continuing to engage and wisely saying nothing publicly about the discussions to date. I have on numerous occasions expressed both Ireland's and the EU's full support for this process, which possibly represents the last chance to achieve a negotiated two-state solution. It is incumbent upon us to give the parties every opportunity to engage meaningfully in the talks and hopefully make progress in addressing the core issues which are well known. No one underestimates the scale of the challenge facing the two negotiating teams, nor would it be honest to pretend that all has run smoothly during the past 4 months. President Abbas is continuing his efforts to persuade his negotiating team, led by Saeed Erekat, to rescind the resignations which they submitted some weeks ago in protest at announcements of further Israeli settlement expansion. I and many others in the international community have criticised these announcements as not being consistent with a genuine effort to achieve a peace deal. Nonetheless, my strong advice to both sides will be to stay the course. These talks are benefiting from the strong personal commitment and involvement of both Secretary Kerry and President Obama. If all sides genuinely engage in good faith in the remaining months and desist from actions counterproductive to the talks process, then I believe that that long-sought prize of a just, agreed two-state solution can still be achieved to the immense benefit, not just of the Middle East region, but the entire world. EU Foreign Affairs and Defence Ministers met in joint session at the November meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council for a wide-ranging discussion on the Common Security and Defence Policy, CSDP. Their discussions were informed by a report from the High Representative and a Commission communication. We discussed draft conclusions on CSDP, which were subsequently formally adopted on the 25th of November. The conclusions covered the effectiveness and visibility of the CSDP, the capabilities required for CSDP missions, and the defence industry from where these capabilities are sourced. The conclusions have been conveyed to President Van Rompuy, and together with input from the Competitiveness Council and the EDA Steering Board, will form the basis for the December European Council conclusions on defence issues. The December Council is expected to review developments in the Western Balkans region in advance of the adoption by the General Affairs Council the following day of conclusions on EU's annual enlargement package. At our November meeting, we had a good discussion on the situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina. I joined with my colleagues in voicing my concern at the lack of progress in the country. We expressed support for the EU's ongoing efforts to facilitate agreement among the country's leaders on constitutional reform, in particular on the implementation of the European Court of Human Rights Sejdic-Vinci ruling. I very much hope that agreement can be reached soon on this sensitive issue, which is a key requirement in order for Bosnia to continue to pursue its EU integration path. I expect we will again address the situation in Bosnia at our December meeting, as well as discussing relations with Serbia, Kosovo, Albania and Macedonia. Myanmar Burma has also featured on the Council agenda in recent months. We were joined for lunch by Aung San Suu Kyi at the October meeting. Her main request to the EU was about the need to reinforce strong political messages to the government to push ahead with the reform agenda. At the November Council, High Representative Ashton reported on the first meeting of the EU-Myanmar Task Force, which took place in Rangoon on the 14th and 15th of November. The task force reiterated the EU's political messages to the government in terms of inclusive and deep democracy, also in view of the elections in 2015. Bilaterally, contacts have also intensified in recent months. Officials from my department visited Myanmar, Burma in early July on a scoping mission. The objectives were to explore possible economic and trade opportunities and to identify options for a focused programme of development assistance to help underpin the political transition underway in the country. Having considered the report of that mission and of recent visits by our ambassador in Hanoi, who is accredited to Myanmar, I have now decided to approve funding of €500,000 for a bilateral development assistance programme in Myanmar, Burma in 2013. This is in addition to the €1.3 million already provided to Trokara and the €250,000 provided to Goal already this year. In implementing the development programme, we will take on board the comments made by Aung San Suu Kyi at the October Council and will focus on support for improved livelihoods for poor rural people, the development of the agriculture sector, support for the peace process and the development of responsible business practice and transparency. We will, as we embark on this bilateral programme of support, it will be important to continue to monitor and address the humanitarian needs and responses in light of the difficult situations in Rakhine and Kachin states. At the November Council, High Representative Ashton briefed ministers in advance of the 16th EU-China Summit, which took place in Beijing on the 21st of November, presided over by Presidents Xi Jinping and Presidents Van Rompuy and Barroso. The summit delivered a number of positive outcomes, including the launching of negotiations on an investment agreement. There have also been developments at bilateral level, including a political and trade mission to China, Beijing and Shanghai, which I led from the 30th of July to the 2nd of August 2013, and a bilateral meeting that I held with the Chinese Vice Premier Ma Kai during his visit to Ireland in October. Our discussions covered a wide range of topics, including Ireland's economic recovery, ways to advance bilateral cooperation across a range of areas, and human rights issues. On 23rd of November, China announced it had established an East China Sea Air Defence Identification Zone over an area of the East China Sea that covers the Senkaku Jiao Islands, which are also claimed by Japan. In a declaration on the 28th of November, the High Representative expressed the EU's concern at China's decision to establish this zone and called on all sides to exercise caution and restraint. Ireland would wish to see this dispute resolved peacefully through dialogue and in accordance with international law. The December Foreign Affairs Council is expected to endorse the strategic framework for the EU and Member States' non-military engagement in Afghanistan from mid-2014 to 2016. EU engagement will focus on existing frameworks and areas critical to achieving progress in Afghanistan over the next 3 years. An EU priority is to promote Afghan ownership and mutual accountability of the government of Afghanistan and the international community on the basis of the Tokyo Mutual Accountability Framework. The EU will also focus on further development of Afghanistan's civil institutions to provide the resilience needed to safeguard progress achieved to date. It is also at this stage expected that the December Council will discuss developments in the Central African Republic, which has seen an escalation of political instability and violence in recent weeks. This is a cause of grave concern to Ireland and our EU partners. Our discussions will consider what support the EU might provide and will be informed by developments at the UN Security Council. Finally, I would note that at our December meeting, foreign ministers will consider a report and recommendations by the High Representative on the European External Action Service, which was established in 2010 and has now been in operation for nearly 3 years. The review process has provided a useful opportunity to take stock of progress achieved to date and to consider what areas might be further improved in the period ahead. The General Affairs Council is expected to adopt formal conclusions on the EEAS review at their meeting the following day. In conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Committee for its valuable contribution and support over the last 12 months, and I look forward to continuing engagement with you in 2014, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.